Hi everyone, I hope you are all well. This is officially my first video of 2021, my god. And yeah, we've already had some stuff go on. We are back in a national lockdown again. It is what it is. For me, it was bound to happen, at least that's what I was thinking. And yeah, we just have to carry on, as it were. But I'm just gonna I'm not down about it, because as I said in previous videos, since the first lockdown that we had in March 2020, I've kept up the same routines. So I've only been going to shops to do food shopping, and any other shopping I've been doing it online. I live alone, so I'm not, around people. I'm still going out to exercise and such. And yeah, I've kept to that routine, and I'm just carrying on with that going forward. So day to day, I'm not really affected by it, like, many other people throughout the UK are. It's just, yeah, we're back here again. It's a bit of a mess, but we're back here, and just trying to get through each day and see how it goes. But in the course of these past, 5th of January now, over the course of the past 5 days, to distract my mind from what's been going on, I've been reading a little book called Jaws by Peter Benchley. Now, I specifically wanted to start the year with this book because I was really excited about reading this book. Jaws, unless you're not aware, is about a shark that attacks and kills people on a place called Amity Island, a kind of holiday place where, lots of people like to go on the beach and such. And it's right before the 4th of July weekend when they're going to be at their busiest. And so the shark is terrorizing Amity, and it needs to be gotten rid of. And there's the chief of police, Chief Brodie, is the one whose job it is to deal with the shark, and you follow him throughout the book of getting rid of this shark. Now, the film, which I've got right here, I've got a Blu-ray copy of this film, is one that has just been ingrained in me since I was a teenager, because my dad adores Jaws, the film. He saw it ridiculous number of times when it came out. He had an LP of the soundtrack. He'd read the book. He knows so much trivia about it. So it's just kind of been ingrained in me as a piece of movie, a piece of classic film history has just been ingrained in me since I was a teenager, but I never picked up the book. And I was just going through, I was forming that wish list throughout 2020 because I wasn't buying any books that year. And I just put it on there. Something in my gut said, read Jaws. So I put it on there, and I was like, right. When I came and bought those books and I was figuring out what I was going to read first, Jaws just stood out in my mind that I really should read it. And now that I have finished it, because I finished it about 10 minutes ago, I deeply regret reading it. I have to say, right, on this channel, I have read some really bad books. I have read some really bad books. You know that I have, and I have been very open and honest with you guys about things that I read, just in general, but especially the ones that I really didn't get along with. The book that is the worst book that I've read on this channel has got to be The Couple Next Door. I have a feeling that this might be worse. Really, I am not kidding there. Now, with The Couple Next Door, it was really bad because of the premise, the characters, what, various actions that happen. It was written like a screenplay. It was just not good. Jaws, however, is not written like a screenplay. It's written like a proper novel. And the first about 100 pages are really quite strong. It does really well in describing the atmosphere, the beach, the shark. The attacks are brutal. It was what I expected it to be. that I was just going along. I was like, oh, okay, there are some changes from the film, obviously. And obviously I had the film in key front of my mind because I've had it ingrained in me for so many years. But I was like, yeah, there's going to be changes. I'm okay with this. Yeah, okay. The mayor's not an overweight middle-aged man as he is in the film. He's not like a normal person. Instead, he's this really thin, trim, you know, quite good-looking man in the book. Okay, I can cope with that. You know, that kind of thing. And then the next 100 pages happened, and it went to a very sinister place. So much so, I know this is a bit of spoilers, but I have to explain this to get for you to understand why I had such issue with this book. So Ellen Brodie, who is Chief Brodie's wife, and they've been married for quite some time. They've got 3 kids. She's just not happy in her marriage, and she decides to kind of look elsewhere. And Matt Hooper, who comes to help with a shark, because he's an oceanologist, he knows all about sharks especially. She knew him from when they were kids, when they grew up, because Ellen dated Matt's older brother, because there's 10-year age gap between Matt and his brother Dan. And they have this conversation, which has got to be the most disgusting thing I've ever read. And I'll tell you why. And it's highly disturbing because, and I can't believe I am having to say this, Ellen has a sexual fantasy, and she tells Matt this in the middle of a restaurant while there's generally just people around her, that she has her ultimate sexual fantasy is to have a man break into her home, attack her, and rape her on her bed while her husband is lying asleep next to her. And Matt, who is sat opposite her, starts giggling, gets excited. He wants to know about how big the guy's genitalia is, what sexual positions they take, and then he asks, "Is the man black?" And Ellen says, "No, he's never been black in that I can think of, and every time I've fantasized about it." And then he says, which is, oh God, he then says that he kind of laughs and he kind of says, well, that's quite funny because as far as I know, women generally fantasize about being raped, and usually it's a black man. And I was like, what the actual fuck is this? What? And then it then turns on to him, and he's talking about him being on a motorcycle through the desert with Ellen sat behind him, giving him a hand job as they're driving through the desert. And then he starts talking about threesomes, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And that bit with him talking about the ethnicity of this man who is attacking and raping her, and she is excited. It made me feel ill. And it put a foul taste in my mouth for the rest of the book. I was livid, and I sent a picture of those 2 pages where they're specifically talking about Ellen's fantasy, because it goes on for about I don't know, 4 or 5 pages where they're just specifically talking about fantasies. I sent those 2 pictures to my sister and our friend Sarah, and they were absolutely shocked to the core by that. I mean, right, I have read It. I was fine with It, and It has basically a child sex orgy as one of those scenes. I thought that was probably the most uncomfortable I would ever be reading a book, and then this came along. And I'm like, what the hell has that got to do with a killer shark? This is only 330 pages long. The shark appears in the first 100 pages. He disappears for 100 pages. He's back now and then for the last 130. So there's this whole block in the middle where it doesn't even appear. And he fills it with that. And it is so disgusting. You know, a woman in her mid-30s, and there's this voice of a man from the 1970s saying, oh yes, women generally fantasize about being raped by men. I'm appalled that that got published. And I looked into, I did some research on this yesterday, and it was saying that in 2000, Peter Benchley, who wrote the book, said that this book, if it was published now, would not get published. If it was written now, would not get published. And I was thinking, oh my God, thank God he's referring to the middle section of the book. No, the reason that he said that was because the discussions in the book about attack motions and such, the things that we've learned about sharks since the 1970s would be laughable now, based if he were to present what he wrote. And I'm thinking, and I'm like, I'm sorry, you thought the shark bits would be the reason why it wouldn't be published now? Seriously? It was, I was just so shook, guys, and I'm really appalled that that got through publishing. I know it was a different time in the 1970s, just as like Stephen King's It, like that the sex orgy that happens with the kids near the end of the book is still in the published form. You know, but I'm like, I can't get my head around that it was thought that it was okay to say that. Now, obviously, like say, for example, looking at other things where it's like, oh my God, I can't believe that got published. Like say, like, you know, how there's like racial language issues like Gone with the Wind and Huckleberry Finn, all stuff like that. For stuff like that, I'm like, okay, yes, that language is very strong and it is really tough to read. Oh, like To Kill a Mockingbird as well. But it was appropriate for the time in which the book was published. This, what is in here, to me, was not appropriate for the time that this was published. And for that, this leaves such a foul taste in my mouth. I can't go there. I can't. It's like a serious line has been crossed with this book because of that sequence in that book. And I've never felt this kind of, had this such strong reaction to something like this before. But I feel it. If it's in my gut that I'm feeling this way, I'm going to tell you guys, because I've always been honest. I always, you know, swear and say whatever the heck I want, because this is what I'm feeling. But it's to the point where it is so detailed and so graphic. I'm like, I would seriously give a trigger warning for this book if I were to give it to anyone. It's that bad. And I just can't understand how this author think it is perfectly okay to say that most women fantasize about being raped by black men, and think that that is okay, and have his character laugh, and have this woman who he's saying to this to laugh as well. I'm really shook by this, guys. It's left me so livid. Now, when it comes to other things like characters and such, even though the pace with the shark stuff is good, the characters are really horrible, like really horrible. And I don't like them. I didn't really care about them. I suppose Chief Brodie I cared a bit, but sometimes I was just a bit like, oh, for the love of God, man, just wake up and realise that your wife's unhappy, for crying out loud. He just couldn't see it, and I was getting more and more frustrated over him. But it just feels so clunky. And it's a first book as well. So now, knowing that it's a first book, I can kind of understand that there's stuff like to do with the mafia as well involved in this. And I was like, what the hell has the mafia got to do with a shark? Like, why? Why is my big question. Why are you doing this? It's a bit nonsensical, some things in this for me. It really is. And a lot of the time, the women in this, you are either a really old woman who's just like there and you're of no consequence, or you're a really beautiful woman who you're only there for, as a sex object. That's it. There's nothing else in between. And everybody who is of importance is a man. It just feels like this is a man's book in a way to me. And the ending is one of the biggest letdowns of a book I have come across in a long time. It is so stupid, the ending. So stupid. And yeah, I've got this horrible bitter taste in my mouth now because of what he wrote. I'm really shook by it. I genuinely am. And I usually don't get like this. But as I said, as a woman in her mid-30s, to have this person joke and say that most women fantasize about being raped, I'm appalled by that. Absolutely appalled. It's garbage. It's just like, how could that be thought of to be okay to be published? I don't know. I honestly don't know. But anyway, I'm not going to do a reading because I am that livid. But for the film, Jaws, Spielberg did an absolutely fantastic job with it. I love the film. The film completely cleans up everything. It rewrote the ending. It made Matt Hooper to be a horrible guy, to be a really nice guy, gave him the good ending that he gave him an opposite ending in the film than he does in the book, but in the book he fucking deserves it for all of the shit he does. He makes him into a decent guy. And very strangely, Peter Benchley wrote the script for the film. I know, he wrote 3 drafts for the film. The film is fantastic. But also it's with a Carl Gottlieb, or Gottlieb, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. It's Gottlieb. So I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his surname. So sorry, Carl, if I mispronounce it. But yeah, he submitted, before Carl got brought into it, he had written 3 drafts for Spielberg already. So I don't know exactly how much Carl wrote or got involved, but at least in the film version, the shark gets a bloody good ending, unlike the book, which is just such a letdown. I would definitely recommend the film of Jaws. See it. It is a classic. It is absolutely brilliant, and Spielberg did really well in taking the bones of the book and giving it life and giving it attention. The first 100 pages really indicated would be throughout the book, but unfortunately the book didn't get there. But yeah, I definitely recommend the film. So those are my thoughts on Jaws by Peter Benchley. So would I read this again? No. No. Would I read any more of Peter's books? God, no. No, I'm sorry. I mean, I am willing to give authors another try, but given what he brought in this book and the things that he said in this book, and even in 2000, because he died in 2006, the things that he said were wrong with his book was because of stuff that we now know about sharks, and never even brought up the sexual stuff relating to women and how he wrote women. Just shakes me. So because of that, no, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there. I can't read any more of his books. Would I recommend Jaws? No. I'd say go watch the film. The film is far superior than the book. One of those rare times I will say that, but it is far superior than what this turned out to be. And yeah, I can't go there. So I don't know if I'm taking it a bit too extreme. I don't know. I honestly, God, don't know. But please let me know your thoughts on what I've just talked about. The things that Peter discusses in this book, because I'd be very interested to know how you feel about it, what your thoughts are. But yeah, let me know. Have you read this book? Please let me know. You can leave me a comment in the comments box below, or give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. It's entirely up to you, I'll let you decide. And I'll be back with my thoughts on my next read, which is The Confessions of Fanny Langdon, which I am really looking forward to. My sister read it about a year ago now, and said it was absolutely amazing, and she got it for me for Christmas, so I'm really excited to read this book. So I'll be back with my thoughts on that as soon as I'm done. All right, guys, bye.